That's right. Live streaming 30 days to make 100 videos. I am on video number 76. Okay, so what you're going to see is in the description a bunch of links that I want you to click on. Follow me on these different pages. Make sure that you connect with Faithpreneur Media as well. Just dive on in, click all those links. They'll be all good for you. It's all good. It's all good. All right, so the topic of this live stream is communication is critical. What conversations are you avoiding? All right, now initially, before the glitch, I was going to talk about trying something new and out of the mouth of babes, things that I'm learning at the hands of my kids. Well, I kind of went into that, so I didn't really want to go back over that. And then something hit me, and it was about this whole communication piece. And I realized there's a lot of communications that we just avoid. We simply avoid it because we're afraid of the outcomes. We're afraid of being so honest that we don't say things or we yes ourselves into oblivion. We end up committing to things that aren't going to work out to not only our best interest, they're not going to work out to anybody's best interest. And then instead of having the conversation about that, we avoid it. So, what does that look like, and how do we get over that? How do we get past it? Well, I'll tell you what I had to do and what I do daily because, just because you have one successful conversation where you address certain topics doesn't mean that you just automatically become an expert overnight. That doesn't happen. What happens is that you sit with it for a moment, you think about it, you have to digest a lot. You have to really take a lot into consideration. And you have to be willing to lose a relationship in order to maintain integrity and to actually salvage the relationship. Okay, son, you can't walk around the place like that. That's going to be dangerous. Okay. And so, I had a situation, and, I've had many of them. It's just that, of late, probably in my older age, I've been willing to address them. And probably over, I would say, the last year, where I was thrown into a situation where I simply had to go into very uncomfortable and quite terrifying spaces when it came to just life stuff that I realized, you know, at any moment, things could be over like that. And at the end of 2018, things were almost over for me like that. I was in a very bad car accident and I suffered a traumatic brain injury. And it took me up until now to get memory back and things starting to operate like they're supposed to again. And there's something very sobering about situations like that. Something incredibly sobering about situations like that because what I realized is that at that moment there could have been a lot of conversations that I left this earth without having. There could have been a lot of situations that could have been resolved, but that I was too fearful to resolve because I didn't want to have an honest conversation because of the potential outcome of that conversation. I was talking to a good friend of mine, TC Cooper, and myself were talking one evening not too long ago. Actually, it wasn't even, it was an afternoon, it was during Sukkot. And in the conversation, I said, we don't really avoid things because we're afraid of getting judged. Really, what we steer away from is getting rejected. The fear of rejection can be so crippling that we're not willing to have the conversations that we should have. And so we backburner those conversations because we don't want to step on toes and don't want to ultimately feel the shunning or the rejection of the people or the person that we are in that conversation with. I have a challenge for you, though, and a reality check. And here's how that looks. Anytime that you have to operate outside of integrity and authenticity, you've already lost that relationship. You're not in a real relationship because they don't really know who you are. They don't know what you stand for, what you don't stand for. They don't know where the lines are. And so they're going to continually step over those boundaries and step on your toes in the process. And what's sad about that is that they're doing it and they may not even know it because they're operating out of who they are, and you've not let them know where your boundaries are. So I've had to have many conversations, especially of late, that were very challenging because I was faced with the what if. What if I have this conversation and it doesn't turn out so well, and that not turning out so well looks like I lose a relationship. They no longer talk to me. The relationship dynamics change, and then they will respond, but only in politeness, not really engaging. And I had to sit with that for a while. And by a while, it's not like I, pined over this for weeks or months or whatever. Some of them I did. But it was a matter of getting just down to the bare bones of it, the reality of it. What does that look like? If I tell you the truth, and I preface it properly, I'm like, look, I'm not trying to offend, but I need to share something that's on my heart. I need to let you know where I'm coming from and how certain actions, certain statements, certain whatever, how it impacts me and what I think about that. Now, this may not be a you thing, it may be totally a me thing, but I have to share it with you so at least you know where I'm coming from and how that sounds to me, how that feels to me, what thoughts go through my head when you do or say or operate in this fashion. So if you're open to that conversation, I would love to have it with you. Can we have that conversation? Now, if you get a yes, great. If you get a no, then the follow-up is, okay, I understand that you're saying no right now, but there is a time where I'm going to need to have that conversation because it's about my being able to preserve the relationship that we have. And I can't do it any longer if we don't have a real conversation about something that is really bothering me. So if you value the relationship as much as I do, I really need to have the conversation with you. When can we talk? Okay. Because what happens in that moment, you're going to learn if they are going to reject you or not. And then also you're going to learn if they've just got something going on within themselves that they can't handle it right then. And that's okay too, to learn that. But then what you need to do from that point forward is you need to let them know when things come up, hey, you know what? That really doesn't hit me the right way. And you didn't want to have a conversation about it, but I'm letting you know that the way that that sounds to me is this. And unless you want me to feel this way or think this way about that, I'm letting you know that that's not acceptable to me. So we can have a conversation. So at least maybe I can understand where you're coming from. And maybe I need to just reformat how I hear and feel about what you say and do. Or you need to make it right within yourself that, okay, this person's never going to have a conversation with me. So then what am I going to do on the other side of that? Okay. You got to come to terms with things. Now, in my coming to terms with things, I had to look at, okay, I'm going to have this uncomfortable conversation. I'm going to make these statements. I'm going to stand up in this light, and then I don't know where the chips are going to fall. But I've got to do it, because if I don't, I know where the chips already are with me. I feel miserable every time I deal with this person or deal with this situation. So I've got to say something so that I don't explode. You see, so you've got to now figure things out so that you're not festering on things. Things aren't festering inside of you because you're very clear. Hey, you know what? I've already talked to you about that. That bothers me. Please don't do that. Okay. Hey, you know what? I didn't agree to this in our arrangement. Now we're talking business. I didn't agree to that in our arrangement. This is what the agreement was, and this is what I need you to hold to. Now, if there's something that we need to renegotiate, revisit this, and come up with a new agreement that we both can mutually agree upon, I'm okay with that. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation and see what we can come to terms on. But you need to have the conversation, because if you don't, you already know you're not going to enjoy yourself. But if they don't know anything about it, then they can't participate in making it right. Let me see what's going on in the comments section. Check in. Hey, Chris, how you doing, bro? Avoiding conversation is delaying change. Absolutely. And delaying transformation, bro. And delaying transformation. Conversation avoidance could be connected to childhood trauma. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, mine was definitely, and I'm going to talk about that in a second here. Sometimes tough conversations turn out not to be so tough after all. Absolutely. Have the conversation for your peace, which is priceless. Absolutely, bro. Confrontation brings about change. Absolutely. Okay, so and let's talk about just childhood traumas and things like that. And I'll be very transparent here, very frank. I did not grow up with my father. Okay, I had a stepfather who was less than a father. There was some, we quite, frequently locked horns. I'm a very strong-willed person. Okay, those of you who know me know that already. And there was a challenge that he had with dealing with my strong will. I am amicable to many things and I am amenable to many things so long as I don't feel that my justice is being compromised. But if you get something where I think that you're being unfair, we have problems. Houston, we have a problem because now I feel like you're trying to impose something that is unjust on me. And then that's where I raise up. Okay. I mean, that's a surefire way of getting you to see another side of me. I'm not crazy, but I'm very deliberate. You know, my kids already have seen that side when, some stuff has jumped off with their teachers where I've had to go down to their school and like, hey, what's going on here? So, I advocate when I see something is off from a justice standpoint where it comes to me. And so as a child, coming up, I didn't always know how to navigate that space. So over time, I was like the activist, the advocate of advocates coming up in school from elementary through junior high and high school. If teachers were out of line, then I'm the one standing up to the teacher, getting sent to the office, stuff like that, weird stuff like that. And so somewhere along the lines, I allowed myself to believe that, okay, that's probably a little bit too much. Maybe you need to not be so in people's face about this. Maybe you need to just accept things. Don't always be disagreeable. So I talked myself into another state of being. And I talked myself into a mindset that said, you know what, having real conversations is okay so long as it doesn't go south. But if it goes south, then it's not okay. So don't have those real conversations. So in order to avoid it going south, don't even bring it up. Okay. I don't know if you're in that situation, if that sounds familiar to you, but that's where I have lived for many years. And it wasn't until I realized, you know what, it's not going to work. Because what happens is that when you're dealing with people who are also operating out of pain and or rejection and or insecurity that causes them to operate from a superior inferior standpoint, they have to operate as if they are over like a hierarchical standpoint, then they will go to dominate that because they've got an issue and have a unresolved issues or wounds, and they take that out on you if you have taken the other side of that same spectrum. So what I found is that when that would happen, it would take a while, but then that trigger would happen and I'd get angry about it. And the next thing, I'm at DEFCON 1 and I'm like slicing and dicing everything. And I had to realize, you know what? All of that could be avoided by having a real conversation. A conversation that says, hey, that's not okay. I can't accept that behavior. I am willing to come to terms and us to find a happy medium where we're both supported, but we cannot travel down this road like this any longer. And I'm going to need you to make some adjustments, or I will make adjustments. And so that clarity came up when I had to get really clear when it came to my kids and protecting my kids. So you've got to now understand that it shouldn't be crisis that takes you there. But if it does, so be it. Great, work with it. But make sure that you are having the conversations that you once avoided revisit those and have those conversations so that you can set the record straight. And then you can kind of move through your life without feeling like you've got to either always feel when you get around certain people that trigger you, triggered, okay, because you've removed the trigger, because you've had the conversation. Hey, I'm telling you how I feel about this. This is where I am. This is where I'm no longer going to be. This is what needs to happen where we're concerned. And if that can't happen, then I will have to operate and respond in a different way when you do certain things. Now, if we both want to avoid that, then here's my suggestion. Why don't we find that happy medium where you don't do the things that trigger me in this way without understanding that this is how I take that. Now, if you can explain to me why you do that, then I can put it in the right segment of my mind. I can categorize it properly and not get triggered because I understand this has nothing to do with me. This has nothing to do with your disrespect or what have you. This has to do with how you see things. This is your filter. And now I'm okay with that. But until you get that clarity, until you have the conversation, open communication, it's critical. You have to see things from their perspective, and you have to allow them access to your world so that they can see things from your perspective, and you both can reach that medium. Let's check the comments. Okay, justice could be a demonstration of your love, which can be viewed as anger by others. True, very true, Chris. I have had a few tough conversations recently that were highly emotional but necessary. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. I'm guilty of deeming some conversations non-productive and will not have it because the end result has no value to my future with the individual. And sometimes you got to make that decision. You got to make that choice. I'm getting better at having those conversations early in the process versus waiting and letting tension build. Absolutely. And that is so key. That is so key. And I wish that I had learned this when I was younger. I'm kind of up there now. But anytime that we do learn that lesson, we can redeem that time. Because what happens is that the folks who get us on the other side of that realization, on the other side of that transformation, they get the real us. And then when we're talking, we don't have to remember what we're saying because it is what it is. I'm telling you how I feel about this. And so I don't have to now go back in the archives of my mind to try and figure things out. No, I told you this because this is how this impacts me. That doesn't change, but I want you to know this moving forward. So yeah, you're right, bro. Getting better at that. And it's like a muscle. Every time that you have a conversation, an open and honest one, sometimes it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to, but it always turns out the way that it needs to. That's the truth. It may not be how you want it to, but it is always how it needs to. Sometimes people will self-select right on out of your life. And those are probably the people who need to leave anyway. But it's not because you've put them out of your life. It's because they have chosen that, you know what, this is not working for me right now. Now, ideally, you're not the type that slams the doors like, okay, you're out, slam, you never come back. Because if they're willing to adjust and change and understand and respect your boundaries, then there shouldn't be a reason, unless they're dangerous people, why they shouldn't be allowed in your space. They may not ever make it back to the inner circle if they were there. And then again, maybe they will if there's a context for why they chose to move on the way that they did and all of that. But that's all a conversation too. And so long as you're clear within yourself, you don't harbor any ill feelings, and you realize, you know what? People do things that are painful and hurtful because they themselves are not whole. So I have this saying now, and it's, I cannot fault a sick person for coughing. I cannot look at you at a fault if you're sick, and I know that you're sick and you cough. My job is to either point you in the direction where there's some cough syrup, have you changed your diet or something, but to understand that you're operating out of your pain or out of your deficit. And so until you can get that filled in so that you can now be at square one, ground zero, with a foundation under you to operate the way that God created you to operate, I can't really fault you. I can make sure, though, that I don't allow you access to certain things so that you don't mess certain things up in my life and your life. But I shouldn't harbor anger and ill will towards you because you're operating out of your sickness, not that you are operating because you're just inherently evil. You've got some things going on. You don't know how to process them. You don't know how to put them into context. And then the reaction that you have to that stimuli kind of spreads out on people who trigger you in a certain way. And so instead of getting angry at you, I should have the compassion. That's when compassion should come to the forefront. And I say, okay, I get it. You got some things going on. It's not a me thing. So I don't have to get my ego involved and thinking that I can fix that. I can't, you know. But what I can do is hold the space right here and still operate in who God made me, operate in that integrity, and ask Him for the strength and ask Him for the understanding and the wisdom on how to deal with that situation. And then I can let you do what you do while you're doing it and pray for you, but then not give you access to the things that could bring either one of us harm. And then at the point that you have chosen to transform and evolve and allow God to work with you in your life, and if you so choose that you want to now have relationship restored, well, then there shouldn't be anything wrong with that, you know? And there should be the boundaries, the healthy boundaries that are set up so that you understand, well, this is what a relationship with me looks like. And it's okay if you don't choose that this works for you. That's all right. We don't have to hate each other. We just won't be a part of each other's life at that level. But if it is something that you can deal with, then we can build from there because that's the foundation that all of my relationships are built on. So if you're good with that, I'm good with that. And let's work at this. You know, and I think that that's a healthy way of looking at it. Let's see what you got. Not having difficult conversations is like punishing yourself. It robs you of your peace. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. And then you said, keep space for grace because all of us are growing daily or should be. Absolutely. May never make it back to the inner circle, but fighting to keep them out. Your world is energy you could use being more productive. Absolutely. And here's the beautiful thing is that anybody who operates in the wholeness that God created them to operate in, you know, at that point, if they're operating in their full being and they are, you know, whole, you probably will end up wanting them in your inner circle because they're going to be doing right and they will benefit the whole circle. But until that point, it's like, yeah, you know, I love you and I love you enough to keep you out of this space in here. It's like I love you enough to keep you from getting behind the wheel of a high-powered vehicle that you can't control. So allow me to let you kind of grow to that, get the training that you need. If you need some advice or information on where to get that, I can point you to the direction because I know that it's not me. And if you choose to get it, when you come back, your whole being will be different. And so then I won't have that apprehension from accepting you closer in. And then over time, as that trust is built or rebuilt, we can go to that next step. If not, that's okay too. I just know where you are in my circles or outer rings. Great point. Yep. Yeah. So I didn't think that this conversation was going to go here. I'm glad that it did. I think that we should have more conversations like this. And I think in business, I see so many things in business where folks are so concerned with getting over. Okay. I had a situation like that recently, and where they are so willing to disrespect so many of your pillars, so many aspects of what you hold to be right and or righteous. And when it comes to money, sometimes, probably more often than not, if you're not dealing with the right person or people, that dollar sign will have them supersede values. And so you got to watch out for that. You know, the word says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? You know, you can't serve two masters, mammon and God. You know, you've got to understand who you're dealing with and what their value system is. If they'll sell you out for $1, or 100 or 1 million, doesn't matter, dollar's a dollar, then you've got to be um, wise, use wisdom in how you deal with them. And if you have to have like a 500-page contract to do business with folks, maybe you should reconsider that. Why is your word so faulty that we need a 500-page document between us for you to do what you said you're going to do? Maybe that's the red flag that you need to say, I think I'll let this one pass. I'd prefer to deal with people that their word means something to them themselves still. You know, I prefer to deal with people who don't devalue you in order to get out of the commitment that they made to you, or to abuse you and cross boundaries because they think they can. The folks that you should be, and this is a me thing, the folks that I like to do business with, they're true to their word. They don't discount or devalue what I bring to the table, and they don't take my kindness for weakness and think that just because I am free flowing with information means that it doesn't come with value. So you've got to know what your stuff is, what your thinking is. You also have to understand, what role do you play in your industry through your enterprise? What value do you bring to your marketplace? And if you weren't there, would there be a hole in your marketplace? If the answer is no, then you need to up your game. You need to really think about, how are you showing up to your table that God has placed you in front of? Are you really giving it all so that there's no doubt that you bring the value? Or are you kind of half stepping it and you're not communicating properly? Your conversation isn't straight because you're not willing to really pour in to help to build those who are in your life. Well, that's my spiel for the night. You are protecting them. Absolutely, bro. So I am the Jason Hodge. This is video number 76 for me. This was kind of cathartic. I'm actually happy that I was able to share this video. Hopefully, it's something that has benefited you in the listening as well. I'll talk to you later. Have a great one. I think I'm going to call it a night.